Blue-Eye Samurai, the Netflix original anime, episode 3, which was titled A Fixed Number of Paths. Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about episode 3 of Blue-Eyed Samurai, and this honestly was probably one of my favorite episodes, if not my favorite, my absolute favorite episode of the series so far. This episode was very much heavily relying on character development. It was, major character development, major story development, and it really focuses on Taigen, Mitsu, and Ringo. And quite frankly, I think you could make a very fair argument and say that Ringo is actually the hero of this episode. So let's just go right ahead and jump into our scene-by-scene breakdown. And yeah, let's just go ahead and jump right in. So the episode opens with baby Mitsu, and even in animation here, this little baby looks so cute and so adorable. But what you have going on here is you have this conflict between two people who are arguing over Mitsu's legitimacy, basically, because of the fact that she was sort of like this half-breed. She's not a pure Japanese baby. She is, part white man, part Japanese, and of course this is, frowned upon in their culture, at least during this time of the samurai. And so one person is like, hey, we have to kill this white devil, or this half-breed devil, this monstrous devil, this little blue-eye devil, and which is so crazy, because it's just such an adorable little baby, and I just can't imagine hurting the child in any way. And so, one guy was like, okay, I'll do it, I'll kill him, or I'll kill her, and of course he's not able to bring himself to do it, so he hesitates and he says, you know what, I can't do it, basically. And the other gentleman that's with them, of course, he says, well, I will. If you can't do it, don't worry about it, I'll do it, and we'll take care of of this mishap and misfortune. And of course, when it comes time for him to actually kill him, when he goes to kill him and stab the baby with his sword, then the other guy intervenes because he has somewhat of a heart and somewhat of a soul. He's not able to kill the infant, and so he actually protects Mitsu in this situation. And Mitsu ends up getting covered in blood, and then they sort of run away with the baby and hide the baby, and basically sort of raise Mitsu by telling her that she has to make sure she stays hidden for the rest of her life, because she will always be in danger if society sees her. And so I just thought that was a really great way to open the episode. It was great character development, great backstory to Mitsu, but in a way that makes sense, because then they end up transitioning back to the scene now where she collapsed, which was literally the very end of the previous episode. And it ended with Taigen getting ready to, well, we didn't really know what he was going to do. They sort of lead you on into thinking and sort of give you the illusion, thinking that maybe he's going to hurt Mitsu while she's down. So if you haven't seen our review and scene-by-scene breakdown of the previous episode, go on over there and check it out, because I actually made 3 predictions in that video. At the very end of it, I predicted either one. The theory that I came up with was that I was hoping for the most was that Taigen would not hurt Mitsu, because he would see that this is even more dishonorable and more disrespectful than what he has already already went through, because he was humiliated and whatnot. And if he were to kill Mitsu here and bring her head back to his clan, that would be very dishonorable, because he would be beating her when she's down with no energy. And so I was hoping and leaning into the idea, and I made a prediction in the last episode that I predicted that Taigen would not take advantage of this situation, because ultimately it would not help his situation. Because whether you love Taigen or not, I do think that he is an honorable man. I do think he believes in the culture. He stands by the samurai way. He even makes or has made statements or comments to Mitsu in the very first episode, saying you're not a samurai, you're a dog, and that type of thing, which shows how much the samurai means to him. So I made that prediction in the previous video, and I made another prediction as well in the previous video, where I thought, well, maybe if Taigen did want to capitalize on this opportunity and take out Mitsu, then maybe Ringo would end up intervening and coming to her rescue and stopping Taigen from actually hurting her. And then, of course, the least and most unlikely prediction that I said in the previous video was that Mitsu would just somehow regain consciousness or somehow be able to gather enough strength to recover and get away. But I figured that that was the least likely. But I was really hoping that Taigen would do the honorable thing. And I also predicted in the last episode too that if it went that way and he did do the honorable thing, I also predicted in the previous video that this might force them to have to work together, and they might even become allies before the end of the season. And of course, sort of all three of those predictions, or at least two of those predictions, both come true. Because what happens, as you see in the next scene, is that Taigen ends up regaining his honor. He does not capitalize on the opportunity because he knows that is the cowardice way, and so he actually does not hurt Mitsu. He leaves her alone and actually begins to help her. But then also Ringo still comes to her rescue and intervenes. So both of those theories were sort of right. Ringo did intervene, but at the same time, Taigen also did keep his honor and keep his respect for the samurai way and whatnot, which I figured anyways. And also, before we get to the end of this episode, you'll see also that, they are absolutely forced to work together. So everything that we predicted in the previous video did come true, literally in the very next episode. But I still, even right now, at the time of uploading this, I still have not seen episode 4. I've been reviewing this series as I've been watching it, just because I don't want. I used to watch an entire series before reviewing it, but then I found that I would get mixed up, and I'd get the episodes mixed up, and I'd be talking about stuff from the wrong episode. So now I'll just watch the episode, review the episode, and then carry on. So anyways, then we come to another really interesting flashback story of Mitsu. We go back to her memory here where she was just a child. As you can see, they had her shaved. She had her head, shaved off pretty good here. They're trying to conceal her, and basically say that she's a man and that she's a boy. It's bad enough that she's illegitimate, but also now she is also a female as well, which does not help her case, especially in the way of a samurai. So I am looking forward to that conflict, or to that becoming conflict later on in the season. I have no doubts in my mind that they will find out that she is a female, and I hope that it's not the season finale. I hope it's a little bit earlier, but I could see that leading into a problem or a conflict in the second season. Who knows what they'll do there. Either way, it was great to see the backstory of Mitsu here. We learned that, the person that was caring for her ends up getting killed, and everything all around her ends up getting burned down. And then when she's told that she's not supposed to make an appearance, she still ends up making an appearance anyways. Public sees her, and this is when, all the rumors and sort of the mythology and sort of the legend of the half-breed sort of begins. It's because she ends up revealing herself. I don't really know if it was accidentally or intentional, or maybe a little combination of both. Maybe it was an accident, but also she didn't shy away from it, so to speak, and whatnot. But either way, it was great to see that backstory, and I really enjoyed it. So then it comes back to the present day now, and then it comes back to one of the white men that she is actually hunting, which does confirm that this is someone that she is after. If you can remember in the previous video, if you've seen it in my last episode, reviewing episode 2, I couldn't figure out who this person was. Well, it turns out that his name is actually not revealed until the end of this episode, and if I'm going to be honest with you, I still can't remember his name, but they do call him by name in this episode. But he is absolutely brutal. He takes this dude and literally smashes his head into this chair, and I just don't see how this person survives. He definitely killed him for sure, but it just shows the brutality of this person, and it shows the type of person that Mitsu eventually will have to be dealing with. But it also shows that this person is very he really has a lot of anger, but he also acts on impulse, which is not good for anybody that is actually partners with him, which we also learn in this episode. Somebody is partners, someone who is also a Japanese leader. And he's a big leader and whatnot, and he's actually partners with him because he makes him a lot of money, basically. But at the same time, over here in Japan, in this culture, nobody likes the white man, so he's sort of protecting him and whatnot. But we'll get into that a little later on. So then it comes back to Mitsu and Taigen, and I absolutely loved this scene. I loved the character development. I loved everybody's development in this episode. I loved Taigen and his development, just with his own story and his own honor seeing that he does stand by the samurai way. I loved his interactions with Ringo, and of course here with Mitsu, and I absolutely loved Mitsu. But I think the real star of this show, like I already said, the hero of this episode is Ringo, which we'll get into. But in this scene, I really, really liked it. At this point now in the episode, Ringo has her stitched up, and he keeps feeding her all these different soups and whatnot to try to help her. These soups have natural herbs, so they're kind of like a healing. They have a lot of medical healing property to them. But here, what I really enjoyed is their interaction here, where Mitsu comes over, and I won't go as far as saying that she actually threatens Taigen, but she does sort of have words with him, and Taigen basically looks at her and is like, hey, you know, I could have capitalized on the opportunity that I had. I could have killed you when you were down, but I didn't, because that's not the honorable way. And he tells her that here in this candlelight, he's actually writing her up a contract that he wants her to sign, which is agreeing to a duel of honor, which I have no doubts in my mind will likely happen eventually, or it might not. It could go either way. I could see it happening, or I could not see it happening. We'll see where the story goes and where their development goes and their relationship. I do think that they're going to become friends, so maybe they will have either a duel just for the sake of seeing who wins, or they won't have the duel. They'll either have a duel where it's not a fight to the death, or they will just not have the duel at all, and he will just accept her as being the better samurai, or the other way around. Maybe Mitsu will look at Taigen as being an equal with her blade. So anyways, then we come to the very next morning. They wake up the next morning, and once again, Ringo here is just being a boss, being a great apprentice, because he basically works for her now, even though technically he's, he's probably not actually getting any money or anything like that. But you get what I'm saying. He's trying to work with her, help her, and basically gain the respect of her. He doesn't really care so much about Taigen, and they have a really cool scene later on, which we'll get into, but he really has a lot of respect for Mitsu. She stands for what she believes. She's not a samurai who can be bought or paid for. She is someone who stands up for the righteous, and she just has a good heart because she has been through so much pain and sorrow. And I love this interaction. I love how he keeps bringing her these different herbal soups, these different forms of medication, natural medication. He puts in all the hard work. Remember, Ringo does not have any hands. He's an amputee, so it's not easy for him to do this stuff. It makes it even harder that he can't just pick up things. For him to cut stuff and to prepare this kind of thing is really difficult for someone like Ringo. And but I loved how he puts the time, puts the effort into helping his friend Mitsu. And by the end of this episode, they are very much friends. And even Taigen starts to respect him a little later on. So then, while they're having their breakfast, or shortly after she's having her soup or whatnot, they start to hear the leaves rustling, and so they start to think that maybe they're being attacked. And so Taigen and, of course, Mitsu ends up grabbing the sword. Now she's all stitched up, still very badly injured, but she's prepared to defend Ringo, defend their little area. She has to. She has no choice. If there's an enemy there, if there's a bad guy, they have no choice but to fight. But it turns out that this person, although technically is an enemy to some degree, he's not there to actually do them any harm. He actually brings Mitsu an invitation, inviting her to go have some matcha tea with the Japanese dude that actually works with the white man. And so that guy knows that she's after the white man, so to speak, and I think that he's just trying to exploit the opportunity to eliminate the white man and also become allies with Mitsu, as opposed to having her as an enemy, because she is so relentless and such a great master of skill with her blade and whatnot. And so I think this is sort of like a peace offering. So they so that dude brings them the invitation, and of course they do not hesitate and they go. Now, in the meantime, which we sort of forgotten about during this episode, but they do go back then, as you can see in this scene, they go back to Ameki, Ameki, I believe is how you pronounce her name, Ameki, and of course, she did end up, going ahead and running away, and as you can see, she's still wearing the same clothing that she was in. Obviously, she's running away, and she is now with this person who has sort of been her guide throughout her entire life. This is someone who tends on her, technically works for her father, but he was very concerned about her well-being, about her health. She is not someone that is used to being out on her own, especially here on the roads where it's dangerous. You have looters, you have burglars, you have smugglers, you have, brothels that have prostitutes, and all these different, it's a very dangerous world compared to what Emiki is actually used to. So he tags along just for the sake of keeping her safe, but I think also he's trying to sort of manipulate the situation in a way that he wants her to come back to her father and come back to the house and to the realm and to the tribe or the back to the family emblem and whatnot, and back to the family, just for one, to keep her safe, but also to keep honoring her father, and so that they can have this peace alliance and whatnot, because her father wants to marry her out. Now, unfortunately, they do run into a very bad situation where they do end up getting ambushed by looters and burglars, which causes the guy who's looking after Emiki to try to have to hold his guard and stand his ground to protect her. So he tells her to count to 10 seconds and don't move, but count to 10 seconds, and then basically escape out through the back. And that's exactly what she does. She takes off, and it was just it was really cool scene. But of course, they end up the leader of the burglars is basically female, and she ends up catching up to her, stealing her slippers, and then tells her that says the truth. She says, "You're lucky that I'm not a man," because obviously if it was a man, they probably would have either raped her or maybe even killed her, or both, maybe raped and killed her. So in that sense, Emiki is very lucky. So it was just a really cool scene, because this is the first time that she's been this vulnerable, this exposed to the to the savagery of man, and to the outside world that she is not familiar with. And so then we come back to our favorite trio, of course, or trio, which is, of course, Mitsu, Taigen, and Ringo, and they are continuing on their journey now, following the instructions of the invitation, and also I think the guy that gave them the invitation is sort of escorting them as well. But I just wanted to throw this scene in here because such beautiful imagery, very much an adventure, feels very much like an adventure, feels very much a lot like even Lord of the Rings to some degree, so I was really able to appreciate that. I really enjoyed that and loved that kind of scenery, and I just really thought it was, it just looked really cool, very breathtaking. And so they basically camp out for the night then, because they have another full day's worth of riding before they actually get to the place that they are trying to go. And so they still got a little ways to go yet. And so Mitsu and Ringo, Ringo keeps helping Mitsu, of course, with the soups and whatnot. But this time they actually, Taigen and Ringo actually ends up having it out. And I think the idea here, the reason why they're fighting, is just because Taigen is sort of constantly nagging at her and constantly telling her, hey, you better not die, we gotta have this rematch and whatnot. And she's basically saying, listen, we don't need a rematch, so to speak. I mean, she's not literally saying that, but the idea is that she's saying, listen, I could beat you with my hands, with my hands behind my back. I could beat you with my eyes closed. I've already beaten you, which she did. She already beat him, but he did say that he was absolutely loaded, drunk, and under the influence of alcohol, and this is why she was able to beat him so much. And so they have a scuffle here. Of course, this ends up ripping out her stitches, and she starts to bleed. But once again, she does win this little bout, but he ends up overpowering her as well. And so it's just a really cool scene, and they really do seem a lot more equal with this scrimmage than what they did in the first episode. So I have no doubts in my mind that Taigen actually really is a really good samurai, but like he said, he was a little tipsy that night that they fought, and I would think that maybe they're either equal, or maybe he could even have the upper hand a little bit. I don't know. I would say it's more likely that they'll be equal, or that she'll win somehow, but just by outsmarting him. I could see her outsmarting him. She's a very intelligent warrior. She's not just strong, she's also very intelligent. So then the very next day, once they get over all that and Ringo stitches her up and whatnot, they continue on their journey. And this is where Taigen and Ringo has a really cool back and forth, because he really does not respect Ringo whatsoever. Now, Mitsu do respect him more than what Taigen does, but she still doesn't respect him to the level that he would like. He very much wants her and Taigen's respect, but really I think Mitsu is who he's after. He doesn't really care so much about Taigen's opinion, which he literally says right here. I love this back and forth between them two. He literally looks at Taigen and basically says, I want to follow greatness. greatness, and basically tells Taigen, you are not great, but Mitsu is. And I really love that back and forth. Taigen's kind of like, hey, but you could work for me, and he's like, no, I only want to work with greatness. I want to become greatness, or at the very least, I want to help greatness become greatness, and basically tells Taigen that he's not great, and that's why he's following Mitsu. So then we go back to Ameki, and she is now, she ends up escaping, and they end up managing to, and they're able to keep their lives, and so she ends up at this brothel, and so she makes up this absurd, ridiculous story to the keeper of this brothel, or the head of the brothel, the owner of the brothel, whatever he is, basically telling him that she's this big celebrity star, and to some degree she probably really is, because she's the daughter of some high form of authority, so I guess technically she is probably kind of like a princess, or sort of like a celebrity in that sense, that she's this very pure, form of richness, so to speak. And so he's buying into it. He loves her, and he's willing to protect her, so that when the guy that was actually on the road with her finally comes, she already has the keeper here manipulated to protect her, and this is sort of her way of getting away from the person that was with her. Which you see in the next scene, you see her on the horse then with the brothel owner, and he's taking her because he knows that he's going to get rich from her, but the truth is she's just trying to get away from all the craziness, because she still wants to search for Taigen, and this is her way of doing it her own way, without needing the protection of the house of her father, so to speak, if that makes sense. And so she sort of makes her own path here with the brothel owner. Now in the meantime, Mitsu and Taigen now has finally made it to their destination. Ringo actually did not go in here. Ringo stays outside with the great big dude that actually gave them the invitation to begin with, and so this is where the story gets very, very interesting. You start to learn a lot about this dude's clan. I can't remember his name exactly, but he ends up he's there, so he's telling them about the white man that she is looking for, the white man that she wants to kill, and basically tells her the entire story, everything that she needs to know, how he's locked up in this castle. There's not really any actual doors, there's no way in or out. The only way, and it's sort of on this island, she'd have to cross all these violent seas and waters in order to get to him, and the security is beefed up so much that he tells her she would never be able to actually do it. Now, what he doesn't realize is that she is actually playing him and manipulating the conversation, actually leading the conversation, and actually getting information out of him by sort of agreeing, or at the very least showing interest in what he's saying, even though she's not really going to agree. And he actually makes a deal with her, offering her a ton of money, and of course he wants her to join with him as a way of getting rid of the white man, but also making her an alliance so that she won't be a threat in the future. And quite frankly, it's a very smart move, really, when you think about it. It's a very intelligent move. Now in the meantime, then we go back to Ringo and this really big guy that brought them the invitation. As you can see, Ringo has got the fire going, and this dude is just sat down here relaxing, and he's basically being a bully to Ringo. He's like, hey, you cook, so why don't you cook? He's obviously hungry, and he wants Ringo to be able he wants Ringo to, feed him and get stuff on the go. But this is also a great moment from Ringo as well, because it shows that Ringo is not dumb. He is very intelligent as well, because he makes the soup and makes the dinner, but he actually poisons it and makes this big guard sick, excuse me, and then kicks him down over the cliff, which I thought was really, really cool. And so, in the meantime, we go back to Mitsu and this guy, and she's basically asking him, and he's showing her, or asking him, how can she infiltrate this building if it's, in the middle of nowhere on this island, on this little island with no doors. Like, how can she get in without alerting the security? She's obviously not going to be able to swim that much, especially if the seas are violent. And he shows her this barrel and tells her, sake, this is how you get in. You sneak in through the sake. And she's like, well, what's this, really bad smell? And he's like, well, this is the really bad, poor form of sake. This is the bad version of sake. They keep the good stuff for the rich people, which he has at this castle or whatever and whatnot. So the idea is that she would smuggle herself in this barrel, and that's how she would get in. Now, in the meantime, Taigen is over here and he's like, hey, you're not actually buying into this, are you? Like, you don't actually believe this dude. And of course, he thinks that she's buying into it, but we know she's smart enough to not buy into this. And so the conversation keeps going, and the guy becomes a little more pushy and really like, hey, you need to do this, you got to join me. And he also tells him, you know, I got 500 archers surrounding you. If you don't join me, you're going to be killed, or if he drops this certain ribbon, he's going to be killed. And I don't know that they necessarily believe that or not, but, you know, either way, she's sort of getting fed up with this, and she's ready to go on her own path. And so he ends up touching her hand, which causes her to highlight the sword, actually cutting off of his hand. And then, of course, the moment that she cuts off his hand, the ribbon ends up falling. And then, of course, we look up, and then we end up getting the 500 arrows coming at them all at once, and this is when the action starts to pick up. But up until this point, there's not really a whole lot of action, but at the same time there didn't really need to be, because it was doing such a great job at you know, telling the story and doing all these character interactions and all this character development, and not to mention the fact that Mitsu and also, I guess, Taigen, they now officially have all of the information that they need. She now knows where he is, she knows how to get in, she knows how heavily guarded it is, so she has all the information now. The only problem is that she didn't actually kill the guy. That guy survived, he ran away, he only has one arm, so I have no doubts in my mind that this will become a problem in the future, either in the future of this season or maybe even a season 2. It could be like a retaliation thing. So her and Taigen are now forced to work together, which is what I predicted in the last episode. I just wasn't expecting it to be so soon, but now they have to work together, and so they do. They pick up this great big giant bronze shield that was there, which I think was actually the cover of like a big cauldron or something that the dude had there, and so they're using this as a shield. And then they had to start going through the caverns. They had to go through these caves or caverns type things in order to get into this place as a security measure, of course. You know, it's sort of like a bottleneck, you know, so I guess if this place ever got attacked, they could only get in one way, they can only get out one way, and whatnot. And so they're going through the taverns, and unfortunately, this, as you can see in this scene, this is when Taigen actually ends up getting shot by one of the arrows. So this does a couple of things. Now, this one, it kind of puts him and her on a level playing field. She's injured with stitches, and now he's injured with an arrow sticking out of him. And number two, it also shows that he was willing to take an arrow and actually put his life on the line and you know, and at risk for the sake of protecting her until she recovered long enough for them to be able to have their duel. So what I think is happening here, he's actually really starting to respect her, he's starting to like her, but everything seems really dark, dim, and dull. We don't really know how they're going to get out of this situation. They're still being fired upon, they're still being shot, and then out of nowhere, Ringo ends up coming in on the horse using, I think, a dead body or something, or using something as a shield so that he can't get shot with the arrows. And he comes in and saves Taigen and Mitsu. They get on the side of the horse and they ride out of there, and they get as far away as they possibly can, and they end up surviving. And basically, Ringo, this is why Ringo was the hero, and he begins to save the day. And for the first time ever, they both give him respect. Even Taigen says that you're not useless. And Mitsu actually looks up at him and says, useful. So now he's really becoming this apprentice. And I absolutely love Ringo. You know, he's voiced by the same guy that was in Heroes, who played Hiro Nakamura. Absolutely my favorite character of that whole show. And now, of course, he's becoming my favorite character, or at least one of my favorite characters in this show as well. Every time he's on screen, he's so cool. He's funny, too. I love his humor. He's definitely the heart. And now, finally, after all this time, he now has two samurais, not one, but two samurais, Mitsu and Taigen, telling him that they respect him. So in the meantime, they're getting ready to roll out and leave, and Taigen ends up getting Mitsu the blade, which is the cracked off blade that her and the sword maker actually made in the second episode, I believe it was, in the flashbacks, when she fought the four fangs. You know, she killed the leader because he had the cracked off blade, and Taigen gives it back to her and says, hey, this is yours because you won it, you earned it, you fought for it, you won, this is your blade. But she already has a blade made out of this asteroid mineral, which is so cool, very cool, matches her eyes, you know, she really is this blue-eyed samurai and whatnot. But she ends up leaving the blade there for him, but she ends up knocking him out, and so her and Ringo ends up carrying on the adventure again, and then, of course, and so they end up leaving him. But what they don't know is that the person that Ringo actually sort of poisoned and then kicked down over the bank is still alive and well, and he actually goes over and takes Taigen and then stuffs him in that sake barrel and ends up bringing him to the white man, or to the place where Mitsu is on her way to go now, because she's on her way to kill him. Her and Ringo are going to go and take out this man. What I'm thinking they're going to do with Ringo is, I'm thinking Ringo is going to be waiting sort of like a getaway car. He'll be waiting there with the horse and whatnot, but he will not actually go to the castle. He'll be waiting on shore, and she'll have to go over on her own. And so that's where the episode ends, with this barrel being brought to this leader, or to this clan, to this house, and of course Taigen is actually in there. And so that's how this episode ended. I absolutely loved the episode overall. I absolutely really loved the character development, the story development, and everything about episode 3, which once again was titled a fixed number of paths. Sorry. And I really don't think that they could have done a better job with this episode. I absolutely loved I really loved how it started and then how it ended, because where it ends is very different than where it started. A lot of things happened that I was not expecting. I was not expecting them to get this invitation. I was not expecting them to actually go and speak to this leader. I was definitely not expecting Taigen to get captured. But it was all very pivotal and very important to the story. And after seeing it now, I can totally see why they did it, and I cannot wait to see the next episode. I'm super busy at work in the real world. I'm working a ton of hours now with the holidays coming. I know I'm working the full, I'm actually going to be working today. I got a big 10-hour shift tomorrow. I got to work Christmas Eve and all that stuff. So, plus What If Season 2 just started, and also Rebel Moon. So I got to try to get as much content as I can done and uploaded, but I will not be taking a break. I'll still be working on Christmas Day with the channel and whatnot, so that's exciting. No rest for the wicked, right? But either way, I think that where the next episode will go next, there's only 8 episodes in the whole season, and she's only after 4 people, so I'm thinking that every 2 episodes she's going to get somebody and whatnot. So I'm thinking that in the next episode she will get to the castle, and I think that she will something will happen where she'll either get captured, or I don't think she'll get almost killed, but I do think she'll get captured or something like that, and her and Taigen will be forced once again to help each other to escape this place, and then I believe Ringo will be waiting on the other side, and then they will all make their escape. I just not 100% sure if she'll actually be able to kill the guy. Maybe it'll be like a stealth mission. Maybe she'll go in and it'll be easy breezy. Maybe there won't be any confrontations or too much of a confrontation. Maybe she can do it stealthy. I don't really know where they're going to go or how they're going to go, but all I know is I can't wait to see episode 4 and see how they do it, and see her and Taigen finally working together officially, because remember, they're both still injured as well, so that's going to play a factor as well. And I can't wait to see Ringo again and see where the story goes. I'm absolutely loving this anime. I'm also really loving Ragna Crimson, sorry, which is another brand new anime that's out. I think so. Check that one out as well if you liked it. Also check out Blades of the Guardians. That was an excellent one as well, all about samurais and whatnot. Really love the action in that one. And so if you like Blue-Eyed Samurai, definitely check out Blades of the Guardians. I think you'll like that one even more so than Ragna Crimson and whatnot. But anyways, folks, that's my review of episode 3. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've seen it, and if you liked it, tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click that subscribe button. And until the next video, take care.